Hello, my name is Bryce Tubbs. With me today is Lainie Liberti. She's a teen mentor, confidence coach, community builder, and world schooling facilitator. And she helps busy parents, by supporting their teens to transform through their lives and yours. So I'm extremely excited to be able to share her story with you today. She's done a lot of cool things. She has a lot of stuff going on. So I can't wait to really see where this conversation goes. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Lainie.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's really, really great being here on a rainy afternoon.
Oh, that's unfortunate that it's rainy, but is it warm outside where you are?
Oh, it's so hot. I'm in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. So the rain is a beautiful break from the heat. And I think that is a really interesting way to even get into a conversation. Isn't life about perception? It's about how you perceive the circumstances and what meaning you give to it, right?
Exactly. I mean, when for me, right, we live in a state. I live in a state called Michigan, and sometimes it'll get to 90 degrees, but it's like a certain kind of heat. It's not like a dry heat, it's more like a humid heat. But it's like, so some people want the rain right there. And I'm like, oh, it really depends. But before we go any further, for those watching, if you're watching this from any location that is outside of our free community, I just want to personally invite you inside. It's taken a very long time to cultivate such a positive group of people. We'd love to have you in there if you're positive as well. Now, Lainie, you know, let's talk about even perception and really what was life like before you got into coaching and mentoring, and really what was the catalyst that brought you into the space?
Wow. Okay. So I just recently entered into the space as a full-time coach. Now, I've been traveling full-time since the economy crashed in California in 2008. And that prompted me to make a change in my life. In fact, I decided at that point to not be a victim to my life, but to be a creator in my life. And at the time, well, I still am, but at the time I was a single parent. I still am a single parent. But at the time, my son was 9 years old.
Mhm.
And being a business owner and somebody who ran a very, very, hectic and successful agency, I worked in branding and I owned a boutique agency in LA. And my time was really focused on serving my business, building my business, creating clients and serving my clients. And, I had 9 employees and we were crazy. But my son would always say to me, Mom, you're always working.
Oh,
And I knew it was true. It always broke my heart. And so for me, the balance between being a good parent, I really, really wanted to be a parent. And my son was very intentional. And I found myself being pulled and not being able to be present
mhm.
just because, of course, I thought my duty was to run my business and provide a future for him. So, not having that balance. And when the economy crashed, I looked at him and I said, let's go take a trip. Let's go see the world. And that was the first time that I was really stepping into my inspiration and listening to my inner guidance and really being able to move through the world knowing that I was going to be okay. Here's the economy crashing, but yet what was important to me was creating time for my son, creating time for myself, and really redesigning my life in a way that meant something to me. And I think right now, this can be a great time of creation for so many people. And I understand, and I know I haven't answered your question yet about how I came to coaching, and I'm going to get there.
You're not there yet. It's okay.
but, but what I want to say is I understand that great challenges sometimes can birth great, what the word I'm looking for is alternatives to the thing that we thought our life was going to be. So quickly, how I got into coaching, bringing a 9-year-old on the road, traveling. Well, what happens? They start to grow up. And oh, I just wanted to mention, we're still location independent. So my son is now 21 and we're still traveling. So we haven't gone back yet. And I realized as he started to enter his teen years that a couple of things were very important to him, and that was community. It was the ability to learn socially. It was also having the language to be able to process the outer worlds in order to explore the inner worlds. And so 7 years ago, my son and I co-launched a company together called Project World School. And since then, we've brought hundreds of teenagers around the world in different places. And we've lived in community. So 3 weeks at a time, 24/7, stepping outside of your comfort zone into another culture or country
Oh,
and learning in community, social learning, and processing all of the stuff that we're learning in community. Well, that propelled me to dive down a path of learning about the teen brain and learning about adolescent development and really learning how to be an amazing facilitator. So for the last 7 years, I have been a facilitator for these trips. But
hmm.
really, it's been about holding space so we can explore the inner worlds. And that to me has been the most rewarding and challenging at times. Um, Path, and I never expected to take that. So fast forward to 2020. This is going to be a year on the books for everybody, right?
Yeah.
It's a year of really resilience change. And if we can adjust and pivot and understand that not everything has to remain the way it was. That kind of resilience, travel teaches you that. Um, economies crashing teaches you that. All sorts of life events teach you that. Well, it also taught me and presented me with the opportunity to repackage what it is that I do. Right now, travel is off the table for many people. And in fact, just in the last 5 months, I've canceled my Japan trip, my trip to Poland, and my trip to Peru. In fact, I'm supposed to be in Peru right now. And I think this is the longest I've stayed in one country in the
Uh,
last few years, but it's okay. It's about flexibility and being able to sway when the wind blows you this way, like a tree. And that kind of resilience helps you help support other people too. And so my job has always been, or at least for the last 7 years, has been about supporting people, um, holding space, listening, and all the skills that I've been using in order to facilitate community. I've now brought it into a formal mentoring, coaching space, and but yet I'm still working with teens. So that's how I got to where I am. I know it was a sort of long journey, but
uh,
here I am.
so let me ask you this question. This is an interesting thought that popped up. So so since you guys have been traveling, has your son been going to like the schools of the different areas that you go to, or do you homeschool, or how does that work?
So one of the other things that I'm quite well known for in my community is being an alternative education advocate. So I work, well, first of all, I raised my son when we started to travel. Well, before we traveled, he was in a traditional school. When we started to travel, of course, I thought we were only going to travel for 1 year. 1 year of travel is way better than fifth grade. So I didn't even worry about it. And when we decided to continue our travels indefinitely, and we're still doing it, like I said, I knew at that point I had to really decide how I was going to, and I'm going to put in air quotes here, educate my child.
Uh,
So, what that took was a really deep dive into the whole idea of education. So,
mm,
what I've discovered was, and it's going to sound crazy, I did not want, after my discovery, I did not want my child to be educated. I wanted my child to be a lifelong learner. And
Mm.
I wanted him to self educate, self direct, and really fall in love with learning. So the love of learning was so much more important than the curriculum that those that package education and say that this, sort of quantifiable scope and sequence approach to learning is education. So I took the institution out of it. And then I discovered that self directed learning, unschooling, homeschooling was really a viable option. And so it was just a matter of fine tuning what it was that we expected and what we wanted out of learning, out of education. And my son and I became partners in learning. So that really shifted the paradigm of how we approached it. And so I've written books, I've written articles, I've spoken at conferences. My son and I gave a TEDx talk on stage together um, about 5 years ago now. So it's been
Wow.
a while. So we've been advocating for, it's called natural learning or self-directed education. We've been advocating for combining travel with this process because that's what we know and what we do. We call it world schooling.
Mm.
So I host a large community of world schoolers. I host conferences, actually two every year, which is why I was in Mexico in March. But it looks like our Vietnam conference is not going to happen this year. Um, yeah, so there's a large community of families that are doing this, and education then really is sort of reframed through a different lens.
Mm. So that means that you were perfectly like positioned for like the reason why I ask, right, is because right now during the quarantine, a lot of families are going through a time where they're like, oh my gosh, the kids are at home. I have to be there with them educating, and they're just not used to it. Do you have any resources or any, or maybe if they don't are still struggling, how can they like learn more about you and connect with you to get some answers?
Well, sure. I'm sure you're going to share my link and my information. So world schooling, most people think, well, nobody's traveling right now. Why would I even consider world schooling? But the idea that world schooling is taking the world around you and transforming that into a rich, almost like playground to learn from. We can call it classroom if that feels better, but it's utilizing cultural learning and world views, understanding and recognizing world views. So somebody from this country may see this world event from this perspective. We may see me, as in me and my child, may see the perspective from this position. And somebody from the same country that I was born in may see it yet totally differently. And recognizing that there are different perspectives of seeing the world and then adding the cultural value and the cultural um, sort of history and understanding behind that helps us to become more worldly in many ways. So world schooling is relevant now, even if you're not traveling. So the first place that people can find me would be, well, through LinkedIn or Facebook, or weareworldschoolers.org is another place. Um, we just one another traveling mom and I just hosted uh, like a free seminar for anybody who is faced with making a decision about education now, about home education, or going back to some sort of traditional model and what that looks like. And I've got a video recording of that 2-hour conversation, totally free. And for us, it's really about supporting people to be able to ask the questions and make the definitions that work best for their own families in order to approach education on their terms. And again, COVID-19 and this pandemic has given us all pause. We can redefine and define anything in our lives as we wish right now. We can define our family culture very differently if we wish, or what our goals, ethics, morals, or values are. And we can just redefine that and retool that in a way that makes sense for us. And I think this pause has given us all the opportunity to really be present and rethink things that may or may not have been working
Yeah.
before. Yeah, yeah.
So, so I don't think you ever told us where to find it.
Oh, oh, weareworldschoolers.org, and I can send you the YouTube link. I mean, I don't do that professionally. For me, um, I work to create community, and I support community and support community in the best possible way. And I do have a very massive, thriving Facebook group called We Are World Schoolers.
Oh,
And I invite anybody to join there. There's lots and lots of community interaction and resources and support. And then the weareworldschoolers.org is the website that supports all of that. There's a ton of information there and resources. But the work that I do, like I said, which lights me up, which gives purpose and meaning to my life, is the work that I'm doing with teens. And that to me, the traveling and the facilitating the trips with the teens, that really gave me that focus that I needed to realize that that's my life work, you know?
that's cool. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate getting to know you better and just learning more about what your story is and what you have going on. It seems like you're doing some really great work. I'm just so glad you're there to help people.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the invitation and I hope that your community got something out of this.
Of course, I got something out of it. I mean, I don't think there's that many people that have been a full-time traveler since 2008. That's really great. Wow, that's really cool. You know, And for those watching, we thoroughly hope that you found this valuable. Now, once again, if you're feeling socially displaced right now in these kind of weird times we're in, come and join us inside of our free community by clicking the link either above or below the video. It's basically a mastermind where we come together and support each other every day. So if that is what you've been missing out on in your life, come and join us by clicking the link either above or below. Love to have you in there. Now, hopefully you enjoyed watching this as much as we enjoyed creating it. Feel free to hit the share button so other people get some great value as well. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. We'll see you in the next episode. We're done recording in 3,